Chapter 12, Part of Moonfleet. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Simon Evers. Moonfleet by J. Mead Faulkner. Chapter 12, Part 2. Ratsey gave me a questioning look, and I could see a little smile upon his face in the firelight. "Ay, she's fair enough," said he, as though reflecting to himself, "but white and thin. Maybe she would make a match for thee, if ye were man and woman, and not boy and girl, if she were not rich, and thou not poor and an outlaw, and if she would have thee." It vexed me to hear his banter, and to think how I had let my secret out, so I did not answer, and we sat by the embers for a while without speaking, while the wind still blew through the cave like a funnel. Ratsey spoke first. "John, pass me the flask. I can hear voices mounting the cliffs of those poor souls of the Florida." With that he took another heavy pull, and flung a log on the fire, till sparks flew about as in a smithy, and the flame that had slumbered woke again, and leapt out, white, blue, and green, from the salt wood. Now, as the light danced and flickered, I saw a piece of parchment lying at Ratsey's feet, and this was none other than the writing out of Blackbeard's locket, which I had been reading when I first heard footsteps in the passage, and had dropped in my alarm of hostile visitors. Ratsey saw it too, and stretched out his hand to pick it up. I would have concealed it if I could, because I had never told him how I had rifled Blackbeard's coffin, and did not want to be questioned as to how I had come by the writing. But to try him stop and get hold of it would only have spurred his curiosity, and so I said nothing when he took it in his hands. "What is this, son?" asked he. "It's only Scripture verses," I answered, "which I got some time ago. 'Tis said they are a spell against spirits of evil, and I was reading them to keep off the loneliness of this place, when you came in and made me drop them." I was afraid lest he would ask whence I had got them, but he did not, thinking perhaps that my aunt had given them to me. The heat of the flames had curled the parchment a little, and he spread it out on his knee, conning it in the firelight. "'Tis well written," he said, "and good verses enough, but he who put them together for a spell knew little how to keep off evil spirits, for this would not keep a flea from a black cat. I could do 10 times better myself, being not without some little understanding of such things." And he nodded seriously. "And though I never yet met any from the other world, they would not take me unprepared if they should come. For I have spent half my life in graveyard or church, and 'twould be as foolish to move about such places and have no words to meet an evil visitor withal, as to bear money on a lonely road without a pistol. So one day, after Parson Glennie had preached from Habakkuk, how that the vision is for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. I talked with him on these matters, and got from him 3 or 4 rousing texts, such as spectres fear more than a burned child does the fire. I'll learn them all to thee some day, but for the moment take this Latin which I got by heart. Abite a me in ignem etemum, qui paratus est diabolo at angelis eius. Englished it means, "Depart from me into eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels," but hath at least double that power in Latin. So they get that after me by heart, and use it freely if thou art led to think that there are evil presences near, and in such lonely places as this cave. I humoured him by doing as he desired, and that the rather because I hoped his thoughts would thus be turned away from the writing. But as soon as I had the spell by rote, he turned back to the parchment, saying, "He was but a poor divine who wrote this, for beside choosing ill-fitting verses, he cannot even give right numbers to them. For see here, the days of our age are 60 years and 10, and though men be so strong that they come to 80 years, it is this their strength then but labour and sorrow, so soon passeth it away, and we are gone." And he writes Psalm 90:21. Now I have said that psalm with parson, verse and verse about, for every sleeper we have laid to rest in churchyard mould for 30 years, and no, it hath not but 20 verses in it all told, and this same verse is the clerk's verse, and cometh 10th, and yet he calls it 21st. I wish I had a common prayer, and I could prove my words." He stopped, and flung me back the parchment scornfully, but I folded it and slipped it into my pocket, brooding all the while over a strange thought that his last words had brought to me. Nor did I tell him that I had by me my aunt's prayer-book, wishing to examine for myself more closely whether he was right, after he should have gone. "I must be away," he said at last, though loath to leave this good fire and liquor. "I would fain wait till Elzevir was back, and fainest till his gale was spent. But it may not be. The nights are short, and I must be out of Purbeck before sunrise. So tell Block what I say, that he and thou must flit, and pass the flask, for I have 15 miles to walk against the wind, and must keep off these midnight chills." He drank again, and then rose to his feet, shaking himself like a dog, and walking briskly across the cave twice or thrice to make sure, as I thought, that the Ararat milk had not confused his steps. Then he shook my hand warmly, and disappeared in the deep shadow of the passage mouth. The wind was blowing more fitfully than before, and there was some sign of a lull between the gusts. I stood at the opening of the passage and listened till the echo of Ratsey's footsteps died away, and then, returning to the corner, flung more wood on the fire and lit the candle. After that I took out again the parchment and also my aunt's red prayer-book, and sat down to study them. First I looked out in the book that text about the days of our life, and found that it was indeed in the 90th Psalm, but the 10th verse, just as Ratsey had said, and not the 21st, as it was writ on the parchment. And then I took the second text, and here again the psalm was given correct, but the verse was 2 and not 6, as my scribe had it. It was just the same with the other 3. The number of the psalm was right, but the verse wrong. So here was a discovery, for all was painfully written smooth and clean, without a blot, and yet in every verse an error. But if the second number did not stand for the verse, what else should it mean? I had scarce formed the question to myself before I had the answer, and knew that it must be the number of the word chosen in each text to make a secret meaning. I was in as great a fever and excitement now as when I found the locket in the Mahune vault, and could scarce count with trembling fingers as far as 21 in the first verse, for hurry and amaze. It was 80 that the number fell on in the first text, feet in the second, deep in the third, well in the fourth, north in the fifth. 80 feet, deep, well, north. There was the cipher read, and what an easy trick! And yet I had not lighted on it in all this while, nor ever should have, but for Sexton Ratsey and his burial verse. It was a cunning plan of Blackbird, but other folk were quite as cunning as he, and here was all his treasure at our feet. I chuckled over that to myself, rubbing my hands, and read it through again. 80 feet, deep well, north. 'Twas all so simple, and the word in the 4th verse well, and not vale or pool, as I had stuck at so often in trying to unriddle it. How was it I had not guessed as much before? And here was something to tell Elzevir when he came back, that the clue was found to the cipher and the secret out. I would not reveal it all at once, but tease him by making him guess, and at last tell him everything, and we would set to work at once to make ourselves rich men. And then I thought once more of Grace, and how the laugh would be on my side now, for all Master Ratsey's banter about her being rich and me being poor. 80 feet, deep well, north. I read it again, and somehow it was this time a little less dear, and I fell to thinking what it was exactly that I should tell Elzevir, and how we were to get to work to find the treasure. 'Twas hid in a well, that was plain enough, but in what well? And what did north mean? Was it the north well, or to north of the well, or was it 80 feet north of the deep well? I stared at the verses as if the ink would change colour and show some other sense.